Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a grand kingdom. She was a little bit spoiled and a little bit selfish, and she would spend all day playing in the gardens with her fancy toys instead of learning about the running of the kingdom like she should. Her father, the king, was just and kind and loved by all of his subjects. He was starting to worry that when the time came for his daughter to become queen, she would be a bit, well, rubbish, and she would undo all of his hard work, making the kingdom so brilliant. But what could he do? One day, the princess was playing as usual in the gardens with a new golden ball. She would throw it in the air and catch it, and then throw it and catch it and throw it and catch it again. It wasn't a very exciting game, but she spent a lot of time on her own, so she didn't mind. She threw the ball higher and higher, catching it every time, until one throw was just a little too high, and the ball slipped through her hands when she tried to catch it, and it came tumbling down onto the grass and then bounced away down a slope. "No!" she shouted as the ball bounced right into the pond with a neat little splosh. She flopped down by the pond crossly. "What will I do now? I'll be in such trouble. This is the 9th golden ball I've lost this month." A loud ribbit from just beside her nearly made her jump out of her skin. "Goodness!" she exclaimed. "What on earth was that?" "It was me," a little voice said. The princess looked all around until she saw a slimy little creature with long jumpy legs and 2 big googly eyes sitting atop a lily pad. "Ugh!" she shrieked. "A disgusting little toad!" "Actually, I'm a frog," said the frog, thoroughly offended. "I was going to help you find your golden ball, and all I would ask in return is that you let me stay with you in the palace for a while. 3 days to be exact." The princess recoiled and said, "No way! You are slimy and yucky, and I don't want to touch you, let alone take you home with me." "Ah, well," said the frog, "never mind," and he hopped into the pond with a plop. "Wait!" called the princess, realising she would never get her golden ball back without him. The frog's eyes appeared just above the waterline, narrowed on her, waiting for what she had to say. "Fine," she sighed. 3 days and no more." "Deal," the frog said, and he disappeared under the water once more. In 1 second flat, her golden ball came flying out of the water towards her, and she caught it in one hand. And then that naughty princess turned and ran back up to the palace as fast as she could go. She never had any intention of taking the frog home at all. Out of breath and a little muddy, the princess slammed her bedroom door behind her and leant back on it, relieved. Thank goodness she didn't have to spend another second with that disgusting little amphibian. Suddenly, there was a booming knock on her door, and she nervously opened it. Standing in the doorway was her father, the king, with a thunderous look on his face. Sitting on his upturned palm was the frog, with an equally furious look on his face. "This frog tells me you broke a promise, daughter," the king said, with a deep frown. "That is not behaviour befitting of a princess. In this kingdom, we keep our promises. Fulfill your promise properly, or I will make it a week." The princess looked at the frog with a scathing look. What a snitch! The frog gave her a smug smile. He had won this one, and he knew it. The king held out the frog and raised an eyebrow at the princess. She held out her palm, and the frog hopped wetly onto it. Splat! The princess nearly gagged, but with one look from the king, she quickly composed herself. And so the frog would stay. She made him a soft little bed out of a velvet cushion and a silk scarf and placed it on her nightstand. She made a little bath for him out of a silver jewellery box, and she gave him a solid gold saucer to eat from and a jewel-encrusted egg cup to drink. She was going to do this properly because there was no way this frog would be staying more than 3 days. Not 1 minute more. She carried him in her pocket and showed him all around the palace. The magnificent throne room, the majestic ballroom, the royal gallery, all the most impressive parts of her home. "What about the rest?" the frog asked. "The rest?" the princess repeated. "The rest? I've shown you all the most amazing parts of the palace. What more do you want?" "The rest," he shrugged. Finally, the princess understood. She showed him to the kitchens where the flour-covered cooks worked tirelessly to feed everyone, the stables and kennels where the stable boys cared for the horses and dogs. She introduced him to the maids, the butlers, the housekeepers, and the chimney sweeps. She even showed him outside the palace and took him to meet some of their royal subjects in the city outside. It turned out the frog was actually quite good company. He loved meeting everyone and chatted away to them all happily. He was kind and funny, and she started to watch him carefully and think about how maybe, just maybe, she could try to be a little more like him. At the end of the third day, the frog thanked the princess and got ready to go back to the pond, a sad, faraway look in his eye. "I'll miss you," the princess told him nervously. "I've learned so much from you. You're so much better at all this than me. You'd make a much better ruler than I ever will. I wish you could stay." The frog beamed at this. "Thank you, princess," he said, and then he began to glow and glisten. "What is happening?" the princess said, stepping back in shock. "Long ago, I was cursed by a wicked witch," the frog said, as he started to float up into the air, surrounded by magic. "I was selfish and spoiled, and I demanded respect from people purely because of who I was. I didn't earn it." "Who you were?" she repeated. "The spell could only be broken when someone accepted me and respected me for who I am inside, regardless of who I used to be." "Who were you?" the princess asked. Finally, the blinding glow around the frog faded, and there before her was a handsome young man with a crown upon his head. "A prince," he said, smiling nervously at her. The princess couldn't believe her eyes. She took the prince straight away to see the king and tell him everything. The king was so pleased at the change in the princess and could see that it was all thanks to the prince. He decided that, if they wanted to, they could marry. And they did. The prince and princess became king and queen, and they ruled the kingdom, adored by all the royal subjects. And they lived very happily ever after. The end. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this magical story. If you want to come along on more of our adventures, make sure you subscribe to our channel. There's so much more to be discovered. You can start right now by clicking on our channel and picking your next favourite tale. There really is something for everyone, from daring heroes and mischievous creatures to magical lands and secret wonders. And remember, by subscribing, you'll be the first to know when a brand new story is ready to be enjoyed. Let's go.